Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and making big flowy skirts are a lot of fun to do. And making big flowy skirts with big pockets are a lot of fun to wear. So let's make a nice big flowy skirt, and our pattern pieces are going to be rectangles. The fabric of this skirt is from Northcott, and it is a rayon. Rayon makes a really nice skirt because of the way it drapes. It's very, very soft, so it drapes very nice around the body. It doesn't stick out. It will always drape towards you, which makes it great for pockets because you won't notice the pockets in there. They're very, very soft and they blend in very well. The fabric I'm going to use today is from Banyan Batiks. It's this beautiful purple, and it's called Carpenter's Magic. And the colors are going to just drape beautifully in this skirt. Now this is a lot of fabric to show you on the camera, so I'm going to break it down and do it in a miniature and refer back and forth from the miniature to the fabric. And that way we can get it all in the camera and you get a clear view on how easy this is to do. In order to know how much fabric we're going to need, we're going to have to decide how long we want the skirt. I'm going to have my skirt long. From my waist to the floor, it's going to be 35 inches. But you can have your skirt any length you want. So I have a little miniature bolt of fabric. We're going to talk about how much fabric to buy using this as an example. So here's a miniature of what the fabric's going to look like. You buy the fabric on a bolt. You have the width and the length. The width in this case is 45 inches, which means it's 45 inches from the selvage edge all the way around to that other selvage. That 45 inches is going to be a front of a skirt and the back of the skirt. So in order to figure out how much material to buy, we're going to need to do just a little bit of math. The first thing we're going to need is a 2-inch hem. The next we're going to need is the length of the skirt. And in my case, it's going to be 35 inches. I'm going to need a hem, and the hem is at 2 inches. So I need the same for the front as the back. And in my case, the front is 39 inches. I'm going to have the back 39 inches. Now I need to do a pocket. So I need to add another 7 inches. This is all the math we're going to need. I need a front piece, a back piece, and a piece for my pocket. So for my skirt, I'm going to need a minimum of 85 inches. I would rather go a little bit more than a little less if you have a choice. We're going to take and cut that piece of fabric off the bolt. Open it up and finish 2 long edges. Now those edges are selvages. They look like they're already finished, but the fabric is woven differently on those edges than the rest of the fabric, so it doesn't hang the same. So it's important that you trim it off. You only need to cut off a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch on each side. You can just do a serge stitch or a zigzag stitch. And those 2 selvages have been trimmed off and stitched down and have a nice finished edge. So here are my 2 long edges where I trimmed off that little bit of selvage and did a finishing stitch. In my case, I used a serger, and my fold is over here. So I have my fold and my 2 finished edges. From here, I'm going to cut my pattern pieces out. I'm going to need the front of the skirt, the back of the skirt, and a little bit for my pocket. So I'm going to have my 2 inches, my 35 inches, and my 2 inches. Then I cut across, bring it down, and make the second cut. Open up the fabric and do a finishing edge just like you did along the sides. And I'm going to do that to both the front and the back. We need to mark a 4-inch mark all the way along the top of this fabric. The hem is 2 inches, so when we fold it over 2 inches, it's going to lay up on that 4-inch mark. Draw that 4-inch line on the wrong side of the fabric. If you're marking a dark piece of fabric, I find a bar of soap works great. I've just thinned off one of those edges, and that will mark your fabric. If you have light fabric, you can use a pencil. You need to do that to both the front and the back. It's easiest to mark this waistband now than when the skirt is put together because the fabric's nice and flat. It's just easy to work with. What will happen is this top edge is going to match up to that 4-inch line. So that gives us a 2-inch pocket. The pockets are going to be made next. I'm going to need to cut this long strip into 4 equal pieces. So I have 4 pieces, 7 inches by about 11 inches. Do a finished edge all the way around those squares. These 4 pockets need to be stitched on to the side of the skirt. We have that 4-inch mark up at the top. This pocket is going to be stitched on so it's just a little bit above that 4-inch. This is my 4-inch mark, and this is going to be stitched just a little bit above. So we need to match right sides together and stitch that pocket on. Pin your fabric on, so we're just a little bit over that mark, and then just using a straight stitch on the sewing machine, stitch this edge together. And that stitching line just needs to cover your serge stitches or your zigzag stitch. We need to have the pockets stitched on both the front and the back the same way. So we have the 4-inch and the pockets. Take those seam allowances and press them out towards the pocket. The next we're going to be able to sew the sides and the pockets together. Place the front and the back together, right sides facing, and match up the pockets. And match up the side seams all the way down to the bottom. And I would recommend pinning those seams together. Both sides are going to look the same. The next is going to be a larger seam allowance. 5/8 is a common sewing measurement, so we'll use that. Before we sew these edges together, we need to make a mark where the opening is going to be for our hands in the pocket. From this drawn line, we need to draw a line at 6 inches. This is going to be a stopping and pivoting point. So with the machine set at a straight stitch, we're going to do a 5/8 seam allowance. So from the edge over, it's 5/8 of an inch. We're going to come down, we're going to continue to stitch 5/8, coming all the way up, stop, pivot, and cross over that seam. And then we're going to go back down, stitch down, and then stitch up. You can round this pocket or have it come straight. We don't need to stitch any of this top part yet. Just come up, pivot over, and around. So this will be a U shape. This area that you stitched is going to be the pocket. This area that we've left open is going to be the spot where we put the hand on the inside. We need to do this little U shape on both sides. This little top section is going to be different for both sides. One side, we just need to stitch 5/8 all the way up to the top. So we're just coming a little bit below this 4-inch mark, only by about 1/4 of an inch. So the one side is completely closed. The second side, we want to leave a little opening so we can put the elastic through. We're going to stitch just a little bit below that 4-inch mark, using a 5/8 seam allowance, and stitch up until we hit 2.5 inches. So this top part is not stitched together. So it ends up just a little seam along this edge. The next thing is to take these pockets and fold them to one side. So both pockets are coming into the same direction. So the one pocket is coming into the center, the second pocket is coming into the center. So take this to the iron and press the seam allowances and the pockets going so they're facing in. The top of this pocket is just covering that 4-inch line, and we can pin that top down and have the pin heads facing towards the bottom of the skirt. Now that top edge is going to fold down and match that 4-inch line that we drew all the way around. From here you can remove the pins and repin. So the top of that pocket is now inside that seam allowance. And that top needs to be folded down all the way around the entire top of the skirt. As you're pinning all the way around, you're going to come to that top seam where you have the opening. Have the seams follow the same direction, even though they're not stitched. I'm going to pin them in that location. So you have a little opening right here in the inside. Once this waistband has been rolled over and we have that little opening, we can stitch the waistband down. So we're going to stitch all the way around the entire waistband. We now have a very wide skirt. We're going to be able to make this skirt the size that we want by a piece of elastic. The casing size is going to be a little bit different depending on your seam allowance. It will be anywhere from 1.5 inches to 1 inch. So be sure to get an elastic that is going to fit inside of that waistband. You can use 1 inch or 1.5 inches. Depending on the elastic you use, we can do a little row of top stitch all the way along the top. And that's going to put a little bit of a decorative edge, and it's going to make that elastic fit in. You need to make sure that you leave enough here so this elastic is going to fit in, and then from there, stitch a little row up at the top. With that row of stitching done, we're going to be able to put the elastic in. I like to take my elastic, get the size that I want, pin it around my waist, and wear it for a little bit. That way I know that it's going to be comfortable. Your elastic needs to be tight enough to hold up the garment, but not so tight that you're not comfortable. On one side, we're going to have an opening in that casing. And this is that area that we left open at the top. So it's going to be easy for us to put that elastic through. Use your favorite method and put that elastic in the waistband. Just keep threading that elastic all the way around until you're able to come out that same opening that you went into. Now I have both of the ends of the elastic out. Before you attach these two ends, make sure that the elastic is straight all the way around and that it hasn't twisted inside. Pull enough elastic out so that you're able to work with it. Because this fabric is very fine, I do not want to overlap the elastic. I want to have the elastic going together so that the ends are touching. And any piece of fabric is going to help you do that. And I'm going to use this piece of fabric to help join those edges together. So when I go to the sewing machine, I'm going to be able to butt those edges and do a zigzag and zigzag those layers together. And that fabric is going to help hold it together. Once I have that zigzagged and it's nice and strong, I can trim off any of that extra. Now I have a very smooth seam. And I can put the rest of that elastic inside the casing. Here's the original opening in the back, and you really do not need to close it up. It's fine. Just move that fabric around the elastic until it's even. That little stitching at the top has given a nice decorative edge, so it looks very clean and professional. The only thing left is the hem. Now we can work our way down to the bottom, fold that hem up 2 inches, and stitch the hem down and press it flat. With that hem done, we now have a nice flowing skirt. The rayon fabric has a beautiful drape to it. It's a very beautiful and a comfortable skirt. Lots of fabric to be comfortable in, nice big pockets, and a very comfortable waistband. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.